This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no, that's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Tonight, we return to GTE machinery for round 9 of the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. We're getting down to the business end of competition in this series, just 3 rounds left to go, including tonight. The stage for tonight's battle is going to be set around the full 5.2 kilometres of the Virginia International Raceway course, and as ever, it's all live on the iRacing Esports Network and presented to you by us folks here at SimSpeed TV. My name's Ryan Jones. Alongside me in the booth, David Haynes, and as he so often is, Jay Kennedy is on the cameras directing this race for us. And well, David, we talk about that championship. It's looking pretty tight at the top between Alexander Bird and Ross Rizzo, and contrasting tales for these two in this championship. Alexander Bird has won 50% of the races, 4 from 8 for him so far. Ross Rizzo, he hasn't won a single race, but he's been incredibly consistent. As a result, sits just 184 points off the lead of the series.
Yeah, that's it's kind of typical Ross Rizzo for you, isn't it there? The Trick Sim Sports guys have had some very, very strong pace, some great team results and been able to work together as well. Bird's been consistently the faster driver, but has, as you've pointed out, a couple of races that haven't gone his way, but when it has gone his way, he's stood on the top step of that podium a couple of times. So Trick Sim Sports have the top 5 in the drivers' standings locked out at the moment, and then you're looking at 6th, Adam Briggs, and then Ryan Jerrick, and Reese Keane in 8th in the standings, so 2 DPR Racing drivers represented in there as well. And you were telling me earlier, 400 points for a win in this championship means that there's 4 drivers still within, a 1-race swing of the lead of this championship.
Yeah, absolutely. That 400-point win is huge, and it means this championship is going to be wide open right until that final round. We're just in the practice session before the race goes up. While we're in here, we'll have a look at the weather for today's race. It's a very, very cold track temp. 6:14 in the morning, partly cloudy, 18 degrees, which means an 18-degree track temp, which means plenty of grip out there for these drivers. It won't heat up much either, being so early in the morning, so going to be pretty fun for these guys out there. A lot of grip at their disposal, and it should make for an interesting race, of course. An hour and a half long, this one.
Yeah, indeed. Most of our sprint rounds in this championship are those 45-minute races that we've seen quite a lot of, but this is a little bit longer, means a little bit more strategy, going to keep the drivers and teams on their toes. And as you say, 90-minute race with a 60% fuel tank limit. If it stays green the entire way, we might see teams need to take 2 pit stops to get to the end in this one. If we see a safety car at any point, which is possible, and I'd say even potentially likely, then there might be some drivers and some teams that either take one of their pit stops then, or use that to try and push out and one-stop this race. The fuel consumption is going to be a talking point, I would suggest, with a 60% tank limit over a 90-minute race like this.
Yeah, exactly. Strategy is going to play a pivotal role in this race. There's a number of drivers that, they're not in the championship battle. Bird, Ross, Rizzo. Guys like John Peacenik, we know how fast he is. He won the previous season of the Sprint Series Australia. And unfortunately for him, I believe a change in car relegated him all the way down the standings. And as a result, he's out of the picture. But he's fast. He can win races. And guys like that, guys like potentially Bo Albert, again, not a driver part of the championship fight, can play a wild card into this race and make life difficult for these guys fighting for a championship.
Exactly. We've seen Peasnick can be massively quick in that Ferrari that he switched to. It seems like a car that probably ought to go well around here as well, but so should the Porsche if you look at the warm-up times that we're seeing right now. Bo Albert set the fastest warm-up time and 1.5 seconds ahead of Adam Briggs. That's about to change because Reece Keane has just gone faster, Bradley Rattu goes faster. A bunch of those warm-up times coming through right now. So the drivers feeling out the conditions, which, as you pointed out, very cold, means very, very grippy, but potentially a bit twitchy. Maybe cars might snap under load.
Yeah, for sure, and that is something these guys are going to have to contend with today. Looking after their cars as well, being an enduro round, they're going to have to be a little bit more cautious of those tyres. Of course, being GTE cars, the tyre wear isn't drastically high, and for a 45-minute sprint race that these guys are used to in this series, it's not too much of an issue. But add in, an extra, race distance length on top of what you normally do, and it's something that will definitely have to be thought about for these drivers. And I still don't expect them to take tyres in the pit stop, because with the rulings of the GT cars in iRacing, you don't take tyres and fuel at the same time, which means taking tyres is a huge disadvantage in the short term and not something you're likely to gain back in the long-term run.
Basically, I think we'll only expect to see tyre changes in this race, even though it is a 90-minute race, if we get a safety car maybe later in the race, or even an early one. Some of the drivers right at the back of the field who don't really have any track position to lose might do that. I think we saw Cam Dance do that at Most Sport, for example, in a 45-minute race. He was already right at the back of the pack. There was an early safety car. He took a little bit of fuel and decided, well, I'm still going to catch up to the back of the field under this safety car. Even though I've only done a couple laps on these tyres, will not hurt to put a new set on. So the likelihood of a safety car, I think, is the hugest gamble that these teams are going to have to take on their strategy.
Yeah, well, that safety car, as likely as it may be, VIR, as Virginia International Raceway, as it's pretty much called, is a track with a lot of runoff. It's not the traditional modern-day circuit runoff with paved runoff, it's grass. So, while yes, there's an absolute acre of runoff for these drivers once they make a mistake, if they go off at too high speed at the wrong angle, that they're going to be sliding through that grass all the way to the tyre barrier. For example, the corner Bo Albert's coming up to, there's a great big tyre barrier on the right, which I found out doing some practice and testing my own earlier today, which you can get very easily if you get a hit from behind potentially. And racing is going to be not so much mistakes from drivers, but contacts and incidents between drivers are probably the likely cause of safety cars if guys are left stranded in the middle of the track. But that is our practice session done. We're about to get set for 1.5 hours an enduro rounds here at VIR. Before we go through the grid for you guys here tonight, we'll go to a little ad on a word from our sponsor at Epiroc. Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. They're on the grid, they're forming up for the formation lap here at VIR, this is how they will line up. Front row of the grid, Trent Thomas for Trick Sim Sports, Jackson Susan Harlow for Logitech, G-Altus Esports lines up alongside him. Danny Davison, a privateer from 3rd place, Michael Healy alongside him on row 2, Brett Kinanzi, Zach Hanlon on row 3, behind them, Bo Albert, Alexander Bird.
Yeah, behind that in 9th and 10th, Ross Rizzo, our man, 2nd in the championship. It's going to be alongside Bradley Ratu. Ryan Jarek has 11th, and Philip Worley has 12th. Neil Pearson is 13th, Martin Silvassi in 14th, and then James McKee in 15th, and Scott Solosky in 16th.
17th place, Adam Briggs and Jackson Walls next to him. Race Keane and Cameron Dance round out that top 20. Alex Court and Simon Mizomo, 21st and 22nd. Row 12 occupied by Josh Perween and Scott Lassen.
Yeah, 26 cars going to be eligible to take the start here. So John Nicoleth in 25th and Sean Reed in 26th. Slight technical problems before we went to that grid, so we're going to hear our message from Epiroc Australia again.
I started working on Epiroc machines in 2009. I've been able to career progress through the company to become the product manager for Australia. This is what inspires me.
Here's an interesting thing to start this race off, Dave. Jackson Susan Harlow, front row sitter. He's going to be starting this one from pit lane. Interesting decision from him. Not too sure the reasoning behind that. I'll get your opinion on that one in a second. But also, our championship combatants alongside each other, but all the way back in 8th and 9th.
Indeed, so that is an interesting one from Altus Esports, Jackson Susan Harlow. We don't know at this point if that's a deliberate tactical move or if maybe he had some issues getting that car to the grid and is going to have to start from the pit lane out of necessity. If you'd qualified on the front row, you'd really expect that your best bet to keep your nose out of trouble is to start from that front row of the grid. So I have to imagine this is probably a problem for Jackson Susan Harlow. We hope he'll be able to take the start of this race, but he won't be released from the pit lane until after the whole field is passed and maybe 30 seconds further down the road. So he'll probably be hoping for a safety car to get some of that time back. It's only a couple more corners though, and this race will get underway for that 90 minutes.
The unfortunate start for Jackson Harlow means that it's an all Trick Sim Sports front row. Michael Healy will slide up alongside his Trick teammate in Trent Thomas. Behind them, everyone on that outside line will move up one row on the grid. So, hey, happy news for everyone that was starting on that outside line. Bit unfortunate for the guys, third place driver Danny Davison. He still has to start from 3rd place, but they're coming around that final corner. The pace car will dive down off into pit road. Field in the hands of Trent Thomas to get us underway. He drops the hammer and away we go at VIR for 1.5 hours. Trent Thomas, not a great restart. He's got pressure from Zachary Hanlon and Alexander Bird already. Danny Davison has gone backwards at a rate of knots. And look at Bird firing it down the inside. Hanlon goes straight off the track and Bird's going to split the middle and go through to the lead of the race. What a phenomenal start for Alexander Bird. He goes ahead of Thomas and Healy. Davison back and forth, had a Kananzi, then side by side as Ratu and Bo Albert, who's now got Ross Rizzo alongside him. And there's a whole bit of bumping and barging going on. But that was a fantastic start for Alexander Bird.
Yeah, huge jump for Alex Bird, but troubles for his teammate in Scott Solosky, who got turned around at the start, and also issues as we saw for Zach Hanlon, who just went a bit too deep maybe, ended up on the grass and there's no grip out there, took him a long time to rejoin. This is what happened to Solosky. Have a look here. He gets a little bit of a tap, that sends him around and he's facing backwards right on the start. I think he's kept it off all of the barriers. There is a whole lot of grass all the way to the left-hand side of that circuit. but not a good start for him, and also not a good start for Zach Hanlon, who got promoted from JSH not taking the grid to start on the second row. But then what happens into turn one, we'll see it from on board here. He's gone in maybe just a little too deep, all of his own doing. Cold track, cold tyres, too deep onto the grass, and he lost a handful of spots, at least 10.
Yeah, Hanlon's got all the way back to 17th place in the field. Here's the start from Alexander Bird. Gets the jump he looks for, tries to go to the left. Covered off by the Altus car, goes to the right, splits the middle between the number 24 and Danny Davison. He's got the inside line, and he just breaks incredibly late, just missing his Trick Sim Sport teammate of Michael Healy. Just pulled it up for cannoning into the side of Trent Thomas, and job done. That was a masterclass on how to start the race when you're back in the pack from Alexander Bird. No more worries for him because he's got no cars in front of him. Ross Rizzo, he made up just one spot though. He's still in 8th place, right up behind Bo Albert.
Bird officially qualified in 8th and then was leading the race out of the exit of turn 1. Now, of course, he actually started from 6th because Jackson Suzel and Harlow didn't take the grid. But to go from there, we saw from officially qualifying 8th to leading the race after one corner. Mega jump from Alexander Bird, and it all looked pretty legal there. So we are away and racing at 1 lap in the books, and soon it will be 2.
Soon will be. I'm just watching Hanlon start to slice his way back to the field, but up the front, there's a big train of cars here from pretty much the race leader all the way down to about 10th place. These guys all tucked up firmly in the slipstream down this incredibly long back straight, which could provide some interesting opportunities. Not really a passing minute spot is this left-hander here, but to the right, if you can get alongside, it does open up some interesting side-by-side opportunities, but by no means is that an easy overtaking spot. But the power of the draft down that back straight is going to make it, as Alex Kaur has gone off the track, he's going to lose a few more spots, and as I was going to say, the power of that draft is going to make it very interesting down the back end of that back straightaway. That may have elevated Zachary Hanlon up another couple of spots as well. Bradley Ratu is all over the back of Brett Kinanzi for what is 5th place in this race at the moment off the start. Bradley Ratu has come up 4 spots in this one. He started back there in 10th. James Mackay has come down into pit lane and
he's serving a penalty. He's been given a penalty for the contact that sent Scott Solosky around right at the start of the race, and we saw the replay of that one. Race control giving a penalty there to James Mackay.
Thank you, Dave. I hadn't noticed that. But, yeah, that's a shame for James Mackay, and maybe deserved. I didn't quite get a good view of it, but that'll put him on the back foot for this race. He'll be wanting a safety car to bring him back onto level playing field. I was going to mention it's compulsory 2 pit stops we heard from race control before they gridded up for this one, so we're not going to be seeing anyone try to stretch it on one tank. It's going to be 2 stops for absolutely everyone out there in the field tonight.
Yeah, we thought if it stayed green with a 60% fuel limitation that everyone would probably have to pit twice, and now we're hearing that that is indeed what they're going to have to do, going to be requiring 2 pit stops. Drag race down the back stretch, Bradley Ratu and Brett Kinanzi, and I think Ratu might just grab that one. Bo Albert trying to get amongst it as well. Oh, way too deep into the roller coaster.
Lost it. Oh no. That was Kinanzi. He backed out of the move. Didn't want to go side by side through there with Bradley Ratu. Backed out too early though. Allowed Bo Albert to get to his inside, and then I think a bit of panic. Sent it in a bit too deep around the outside. Couldn't get pulled up to get back to the right. Here's the onboard. And you can see fighting wheel on entry, and then just clips that curb, spins him around as he lands very awkwardly, and that's a very awkward place we face it backwards too. Almost got stuck as well on the little crest of the side of the track there, as that has elevated Bo Albert and Bradley Ratu up a spot, and they're side by side. Albert's looking to make another spot up. Ratu defending around the outside at turn number 4, but Albert's got to run now. If he can get the power down, he's using all of the track, maybe a bit too much of it. Ross Rizzo is right in behind these guys too, looking for an opportune moment to make his move sick. Through the snake they go, and through up the roller coaster as well. No way past at this point in the track. as that's a car that's facing the wrong way. And
More
Kananzi,
dramas for Kananzi.
yeah, he's gone from bad to worse there. What's happened here, Dave?
Well, this is the lower S's. He's right on the exit of that, so we'll see. Has he just caught just a bit too much curb again? Sent him spinning around. Oh, he was so lucky to not collect some of those cars that he then spun back onto the circuit in front of. One of them, Simon Mazzomo, who'd already had a bit of dramas, I think, as Kananzi had forced his way through. And then has Kananzi spin right in front of him, picks to go to the right-hand side. Mazzomo just avoided that.
Ratu's been potentially turned. Oh, someone else just missed him after having their own issues too, Jackson Walls. Though Albert, I can't quite tell from that angle whether there was contact. You would suggest from the reaction of Ratu's car that there was contact. This is Hanlon going around as well, and then Walls trying to avoid him. Almost cleaned up Bradley Ratu on the grass in the meantime. So about 3 or 4 cars in the end having issues with that corner. Bad news for Bradley Ratu. It doesn't seem that side-by-side through that particular corner is working too well for these drivers.
No, definitely not. Another driver that I just missed also had to take some big evasive action there. So you've got to have your wits about you because people could spin in front of you. And we've seen some hairy moments. Thankfully, not too much damage or car-to-car contact. Riding on board with Silvassi, and he's trying to hunt down Briggs.
James Mackay has copped yet another penalty as a result of his previous penalty. He didn't serve that one correctly, and now he's been dished out yet another penalty, so he's having an absolute nightmare of a time back there in 25th place at the moment.
Because I swear that I heard him get given a drive-through penalty, and of course we did see him stop in his box. If he's taken service then that doesn't count as serving the drive-through penalty, I would imagine. So that's probably what's seen him handed another penalty, is that he still effectively, functionally needs to serve that first penalty.
Well, that's unfortunate for Mackay. Maybe a misunderstanding of the rules there, default for that one. As there's a battle for 9th place. Adam Briggs and Martin Silvassi. This is for 9th place, side by side down the almost straight main straight. Bit of a curve in the middle of that one, and through goes Silvassi. Pretty easy move, completed that one in the almost straight line between the last corner and the first. So Briggs moves back into 10th place ahead of Cameron Dance, who leads about a 4-car train for 11th, which is actually as Jackson Susan Harlow. Didn't he start from pit lane? He's up into 14th place. He's had a fantastic start to this one. Coming up from the back.
His pace has been very good as well. I was looking at that earlier. He's gained quite a few positions. A couple, maybe a lap or so ago, he was 12 seconds away from the lead of the race. He's still 12 seconds away from the lead of the race, and if anything, he's been closing in, so his speed has been absolutely massive in that Altus Esports Porsche. He set the fastest lap of the race last time, and now he's just joined onto the back of this train of Dance, Pearson and Keane. And if Harlow wants to maybe finish in the top 5 at the end of this race, he's either got to maybe try and take an early pit stop and an undercut, or he needs to get through these guys quickly.
He certainly does, but the good news for him is he's got plenty of time to work his way through this field without taking too many risks, and the 2-stop strategy as well. There are a lot of games to be played and tactics to play out over the course of this one when it comes to making your pit stops. As he's just made a bit of a mistake there, run wide, dropped a few tyres off the back of the track. Further back, there's contacts, and Cameron Dance off into the barriers, clips it with the rear end. He'll carry on his way with a bit of a skewed rear wing, I would expect. We've got a replay up on screen of what's unfolded. There was contact with Neil Pearson, I do believe. That was Harlow going off the track behind it. Oh, what is...
slow. Dance was already kind of slow in front of Neil Pearson. Then there was a bit of contact that sent Dance around. He must have also had an issue through the roller coaster there. So we'll look from a bit earlier. Here he is coming in. Slide. He's off the circuit. He rejoins in front of Pearson. And Pearson chooses to go to the left. And... alright. Yeah, I was like... That's a difficult one. Neil Pearson and Reece Keane only had so much visibility of what the slow Dance was doing. So from Keane's perspective, he's right up behind the rear wing of Pearson, and he's looking. Pearson goes to the left, so Keane tries to go through to the left as well, makes a bit of contact there.
Tough to call that one, Dave. I think maybe just a bit of an unfortunate coming together of a slower car and a faster car.
Cleared away for Jackson. Yeah, exactly my point. It's cleared away for him. He's now just got Neil Pearson in front of him, and he's looking ever closer there. Harlow is now 14 seconds off the lead of the race now, though.
Bradley Ratu is the fastest man on track, a 40.901 last time by, the fastest lap of the race, and Ratu is of course back in 16th place after having his issues, so there's a lot of very fast drivers scattered up and down this field. The gap at the front is not that big at all, it's just 0.4 of a second, and in fact I'd say Alexander Bird's under a bit of pressure right now from his Trek teammate in Trent Thomas. But here comes Harlow. He's having a look to the inside of Neil Pearson. Late on the brakes, up the inside. Get the car pulled up. Nice move. Textbook stuff there from Jackson Harlow.
Yeah, but now only one spot away from the top 10. He needed to get through there pretty quickly because we've seen he's got great pace, but he goes nearly wide off the track. I think that's corner's called left hook, I think. But the lead of the race here. Bird just a couple tenths ahead of his teammate Trent Thomas, who's just a couple tenths ahead of Michael Healy. The three Trick guys forming a bit of a breakaway. Danny Davison is then a couple seconds down the road from them. But Bird, the big move in the first in the first corner to get to the lead. He then hasn't been able to pull away from the rest of his team.
He certainly hasn't, despite that amazing start. So we'll see whether this develops into a theme about this race of Bird just having a bit of a train form up behind him. If Danny Davison can get there, maybe Albert, Rizzo. We'll see how far up Harlow and Ratu can come as well, because we know they have pace. At the moment, all he's got to worry about is his teammate, and being... Well, here's an interesting and tough dilemma. They are teammates, yes. Bird leads championship, yes. But Trent Thomas is third in the championship. He's not as close as Rizzo, but he's certainly an outside chance if he has a good round and Bird makes a mistake here or there. So there's an interesting dynamic here for Trick Sim Sports to manage. Do they let these guys race it out when they are fighting for a championship, or do they cut their losses and say, guys, just make sure we come home in a good, strong position for the team here?
Dramas for Silvassi, though. Trick Sim Sports still leading 1-2-3, but Martin Silvassi losing a bunch of spots. See the replay of how that happened to him. He's mostly all by himself, coming on the brakes into turn one. Just gets in a little hot, locks up a tyre, and then once he's wide, he's out on the grass, and that spins around. He's facing the wrong way, and he loses a whole chunk of time. Memory serves, he must have been running around 7th or 8th or something, and he has to wait for when to rejoin. He's now down in 14th.
Unfortunate mistake there for Silvassi. Remember the Trick Sim Sports team I was just talking about there when he made that mistake. So, yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how this dynamic plays out throughout this race. So it does appear that Bird's pulled out. I think Albert's coming under pressure, though, from Ross Rizzo. He's certainly tucked up in behind him, and he is faster than Bo Albert, too. So, can Rizzo make it 4 Trick Sim Sport cars in the top 5? You've got a replay up on the screen. This was a incident for Neil Pearson through turn 11, running wide, and Jackson Harlow in front of him as well, losing the car through Oak Tree. Pearson going off in sympathy behind him. Here's the onboard from Harley, just got up onto the curb and couldn't quite arrest the speed of that car and get it turned in properly. Over-rotated it.
I tell you what, coming too hot into that first part of Oak Tree, like we see Neil Pearson did, getting a little bit of grass and then not being able to stop it before you find the tyre barrier. HJ Motorsport have done that, and it's expensive. So that's such a common mistake to make around this circuit. You come in at a lot of speed, and then you're scrubbing the speed off while you're turning. You only need to come in a little bit too hot, and then suddenly you've either got to choose between braking or turning, and either of those situations will then put you into the wall. So tough braking zone there, and we've seen that's caught out Neil Pearson at the same time that the high curbs were catching out Jackson Suzlin-Harlow. Cost him a bit of time, but I don't think it cost him a position.
No, I think it did cost them one position though. Someone else came through after they both made their mistakes. So at the back, Bradley Ratu's on a charge for 14th place in this race for XG Motorsports after making that mistake earlier. He's tucked up behind another driver who's run into issues in this one, Martin Silvassi in 13th. Jackson Walls is just in front of them.
Silvassi just got that spot back because we saw he was facing kind of the wrong way on the exit of turn 1, got it back going again. He's now got one of those positions back from Bradley Ratu, but a couple more cars in front that he still needs to get past.
That's not a fantastic looking rear wing that Cameron Dance has got. He's confident in it enough to go up the inside of Neil Pearson into one of the most troublesome spots we've seen today. They've managed the first part, they've managed the second part, and good defence from Pearson, hanging it tough, keeping that spot away from Cameron Dance at what has been a trouble spot today.
Switch for position, second and third. And Michael Healy has gotten ahead of his teammate Trent Thomas. Thomas was putting all manner of pressure on Bird for the lead of this race earlier. But now Michael Healy has jumped in there. At the same time, Bird's gone a bit wide and cost himself a bit of time. So all going on for our leading 3. And let's let Danny Davison in 4th catch up. The leading pack is now Bird, Healy, Thomas and Davison.
And it is incredibly tight. 6/10 covering the top 3 drivers. It's going to be a slipstream fest down this back straight if Healy can get a good run off Oak Tree or even Thomas. There could very easily be a change of position at the end of this back straightaway, which is turn number 14 and 14A. The American obsession with naming 2 corners, an A and a B.
So Ratu is stuck with Silvassi. But Albert and Rizzo have been closing in on the lead of the race. Problem for Sean Reed. Is this going to cause a safety car? Where is that? He's stuck in that Armco. We'll get a replay of what has happened to him. So this is going to be coming down through the final corner of Hogpen. What does Sean Reed do? It's so easy to push a little wide, get on the grass there. Is he aiming for the pit lane? He's found a bump on the exit and then gone straight hard into the barrier right near the pit entry. Dramas as well for Jackson Suzlin-Harlow while we were looking at that.
We believe this one for Harlow was at Oak Tree again. Let's have a look. Has he done the same thing? He's on a bit wide. Caution's out on track in live pictures. He nearly rolled that thing. Caution's out. First safety car of the evening with a Trick Sim Sports 1, 2, 3. Let's see how they play this strategy now. Is it a good moment to make your pit stop?
Jackson Suzlin-Harlow nearly putting that Porsche on its roof. But is that car that we saw stuck in the guardrail on the pit straight? Sean Reed has brought out our first safety car. Alexander Bird is about to catch that pace car further around. Who will jump into the pits now? I think you only really would if you think that you can get home with only one more stop after here. There's that safety car waiting for the leaders to come around. It's good to see that all of the cars they've got, Trick Sim Sport, aren't using one to back up the rest of the pack.
Yeah, no doubt. This will be interesting here because we're only 20 odd minutes into this race, so if it's a two-stop strategy, you wouldn't think it's a particularly great time, and none of those lead drivers opting to come down pit lane. So I think this is a bit too early to see any pit stops in this race, certainly from the front runners at least. But what it is going to do is it's going to bring the rest of that pack up onto the battle for the lead, where it really seems like Alexander Bird is struggling a bit for pace out there, and is maybe being let off by the fact he has 2 teammates lined up behind him.
Yes, he's great for Danny Davison. He's now right up for the lead, and same for Bo Albert and Ross Rizzo, who are doing some great laps. We see some of these cars coming past the pit entry, and just about everyone has stayed out, including those getting down as far as about 20th spot or so. So it is obviously too early for a lot of these guys to take a pit stop.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at the. I'll be honest, I zoned out. I'm sorry, Dave. I didn't quite hear what you said. But you do a fantastic job of analysing this race, Dave. I'm sure it was a very good point. I'm going to save grace and have a look at the biggest movers in this race in the opening stint. Alexander Bird, sixth to first, all came in the space of about a couple hundred meters before turn 1. Philip Worley's come up 5 spots. Adam Briggs, 17th to 9th. Reece Keane, 19th to 10th. Walls has gone with him, 18th to 11th. There's some big moves in this field. Going down the order, Harlow, 2nd to 14th. We've seen the issues he has had in this race. Cameron Dance has, for all the troubles he's had with that rear wing, completely bent out of shape, is still up 5 spots. Zachary Hanlon, that mistake at turn 1 has cost him big time. Hasn't been able to make much ground back up through the field from 6th place on the grid. Did start from 4th, thanks to Harlow's issue at the start. He's gone all the way back to 18th, and Brett Kenenzi as well appears to be out of this race, along with Sean Reid. Well, Sean Reid's on track, but he is 2 laps down as a result of that contact with the wall.
As a result of them presumably having to rearrange all of that Armco barrier to get his car out. Thankfully, he's not too far from the pit lane or from the paddock, though. So there he is. So pit lane probably didn't open the first time all the teams came around, but this time, whole field backed up in line behind the safety car. We probably will see the pit lane open this time, and then we'll see who jumps in. And the fact that this 1 lap behind the safety car has taken them 3 or more minutes means we are now only a couple minutes away from being a third of the way through the race. This has probably helped out some of the teams maybe be closer to being able to make this a legitimate pit stop. Alexander Bird, Michael Healy are thinking about it, and almost everyone, I think, will take this opportunity for pit service.
Yeah, that clock's ticking down to 1 hour, 6 minutes, and of course the standard race, which is a 1-stop, is only 45 minutes, so you would definitely have to have assumed that we would see everyone into pit lane. The next question now is, has anyone been able to save fuel? Those 2 trick guys who've been following Bird around the track might have been able to save a bit of fuel on that draft. Further back in the field as well, other drivers who spent a while in someone else's wake might have been able to save a little bit of fuel, and with no tyres being taken for most of these drivers, it should be pivotal. Who's first out of the pits? It's Alexander Bird, Michael Healy and Trent Thomas, 2nd, 3rd. Albert, 4th, ahead of Rizzo. And Danny Davison's not had a fantastic stop. He's dropped back in behind Albert and Rizzo.
Yeah,
And Worley.
Long stop for some there, so that we'll all see how this shakes out in a little bit. But another thing about them all coming in under this safety car is that by the time we get green flag racing again, it'll almost be 1 hour to go, so they'll won't burn much fuel at all behind this safety car.
There are a few drivers that have taken tyres though. James Mackay. Everyone behind Scott Kozlowski has opted to take tyres. James Mackay, I believe, or Ryan Jerrick actually, is the first of those drivers. And then James Mackay, Josh Perween, John Nicoleff, and Scott Rassan and Cameron Dance have also all taken tyres. So
for Dance, because he's also tried to get some repairs done, and it's created a new, more interesting shape to that rear wing. I can't say it looks much more effective or aerodynamic, but they've definitely maybe gotten a rubber mallet out and tried somewhat in vain to reshape that rear wing.
I think it's actually made it worse. I don't think it had that big dent in it before, and it does now, so whatever happened at the pit stop there for Dent...
Oh yeah, it wasn't level, but it
great.
was straight. Now it's not level or straight.
Well, that's a unfortunate situation for the FT1 driver there. Someone stayed out. Alex Court has opted not to pit unless he pits this time by Neil.
These
Well, the lights are out, so yeah, Neil
before
Pearson.
the safety car. So Court and Pearson have maybe been. They might have had the opportunity to jump into the lane when they saw Sean Reed buried in the barrier and thought this will probably bring out a safety car because they've pitted 3 and 2 laps ago respectively. They've got about the same fuel as everyone behind them. They took a gamble on the strategy and then a safety car's come out and paid off for them. And on top of that, I think they've got a lapped car or so between them and Bird, Healy and Thomas behind.
The bad news is if I have a look at their best laps in this race, they are probably going to struggle a bit. A 42.4 and a 42.1 for Court and Pearson plays high 40s for the guys behind this laps car, led by Alexander Bird. So we'll see how long they can hold them off. I don't think it's a ploy to win the race, but it's a ploy to gain more positions in terms of your race that you're having for the spots lower down the order. So we'll see how this one plays out as the pace car dives downfield in the hands of Alex Court. Sean Reed dives out of the way of that laps car. So it's a straight fight now between the top drivers. And away we go on the drop of the green. Good start for Alexander Bird. Who's that on the grass? Contact! Bo Albert involved, spinning off to the inside. And it was one of the Trick Sim Sport cars. Michael Healy as well was the one that was getting the squeeze there with Bo Albert. 3 wide through turn 1 as well. More contact being made. And it's all happening up and down the field. Alexander Bird just spun to the inside but saved it. And this is an absolutely frenetic restart. Contact all the way up and down the field. Silvassi stopped on the grass as well. There's trouble for the leader who's almost spinning out of control as well, Alex Court. And this has shaken up this race, Dave.
It was a bad jump from Alex Court. He was backing the field up and he was about to get going, but the green flag came out before he'd made his jump. The whole field was then closing up in on him, and Bo Albert has picked up a lot of damage on the front of that car after the first spin that we saw. So we get a replay or so of some of the angles. Here's Bo Albert in the field at the start. What happens to him? Because Court has really backed up the whole field. Albert gets going. He's 2 wheels on the grass to the inside. Door gets closed. The 2 cars come together, and actually Albert might have hit with a barrier on the pit exit.
I think he did. This was the 3 wide through turn 1 as well. Just in behind them, contact with Silvassi, sorry. And then Silvassi ended up. Oh, who was that? Was that
Susan Harlow?
Jackson Harlow in another incident, driving that car off the track. It was up on top of his bonnet. Adam Briggs spun to the inside through turn 3. Here's the replay what unfolded for him. Contact from the Trick Sim Sports car behind as they all checked up through the middle of the corner. Up at Oak Tree there was contact with Jackson Walls and Danny Davison as well. And now they're almost 3 wide into turn 1 in live pictures as Bo Albert and, Zachary Hanlon almost gets turned, as that was a replay of Bo Albert up on the screen. We'll go back to live pictures because it's still going on up and down this field. Reese Keane, Bradley Ratu up there too. At the lead of the race, Neil Pearson has taken it away from Alex Court, who's dropped in behind Alexander Bird, Trent Thomas and Ross Rizzo and Philip Worley. So Court's going backwards at a rate of knots. Meanwhile, Pearson's got one heck of a job on his hands now to hold off the Trick Sim Sport train behind him. Look at him close up through the roller coaster. And he'll set himself up through Oak Tree, down the back straight. Race control, reviewing the incidents that occurred, as you can see on screen, off that restart. It was certainly a messy restart by normal standards here in the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. And Ross Rizzo, where's he come out of all this? He's back in 5th place, so no damage on the championship contenders though, which is key.
Yeah, specifically what's under investigation, there's a couple, but specifically Bo Albert and, forgive me, it was Michael Healy, that either you could say maybe Albert jumped at the start a little bit, or maybe Healy closed the door when Albert was already part of the way up the inside there. Definitely caused a bit of an incident. Bradley Ratu, more troubles for him within the last hour of this race now.
Bradley Ratu looks like he's just rotated it potentially by himself. We'll go back and have a look. He was racing with Jackson Walls and Zachary Hanlon in behind him. What's unfolded? He's just lost it by himself on the brakes, I think. Yeah, trying to stop himself getting into the back of walls. Pinched the rears, took the lesser of two evils, and spun himself around in the process. Pearson's gone off and lead of the race. He drops back into what's now going to be 6th place. Releases the Trick Sim Sport train, and Neil Pearson's throw that one away just a little bit. Josh Perwin's gone off as well. There's a lot of mistakes being made by drivers on today's 18-degree track set. Not what you'd expect from such a cold, what should be a grippy track.
Yes, that puts Bird, Thomas, Rizzo and Worley now as our lead pack, and suddenly Philip Worley in this DPR Porsche right up amongst the leading trio. So a good run from him, but our guys who were at the pointy end at the restart, Court and Pearson, both had their own issues, sinking a bit deeper into the pack. Bird leads once again, but still towing around his teammates, and Philip Worley doing everything he can to stick with them as well. Had a good run off of Oak Tree, but wasn't close enough to make a move going into the roller coaster. Take 2, Reese Keane goes against Jackson Walls and grabs that spot.
Couple of black flags being issued, drive-through penalties. Michael Healy and Bo Albert, and I'm not too sure what the penalty for Michael Healy is for. Bo Albert, I think we can all guess what that was for. That was probably for the restart crash on the start-finish straight with Healy, as Reese Keane is making yet another move, this time on Alex Court. Jackson Walls is watching 2 cars side by side in front and behind him, because Brett Canenzi is coming through as well. That's Ryan Jarek, sorry, Canenzi's teammate, I do believe. And Jarek has had to dive out of the way of an extremely late braking Trick Sim Sport car. That was Scott Szlowski. This is a feisty little pack of cars here, all tucked up on each other. And that round goes Davison right on the racing line, forcing Simon Mizomo to dive to the grass in avoidance, and now he's going to be under pressure from Harlow as Davison recovers his car. And oh, this is messy into the snake, and somehow they all get through, and no they don't. Off goes Mizomo, firing off to the inside. Just misses the barrier. We'll see that in a second. That was what happened to Davison, losing it all by himself, spinning off. And take a look at this, Dave.
Yeah, so then it checked up Mizomo, had to get out of the throttle a little bit, and then side by side through the climbing S's does not always work. Mizomo gets way unsettled on one of those curbs and nearly makes it all the way to the Sven Demel barrier, but doesn't quite. Rallycross stuff out there. He has to go around one of the flag stations too. He'll rejoin the race.
Although the way this race is going, I wouldn't put it past either of them somewhere appearing up inside the top 10 again, as Danny Davison and Mizomo have found themselves on track together. As more cars exit the stage left, that's Adam Briggs. He goes back into 15th behind. I can only assume that's Cameron Dance, judging by the rear wing of that car in front. At the lead of the race, the battle is close for second. Trent Thomas is under pressure from Ross Rizzo, has found his way up into 3rd place, and will look to get by Thomas and start to challenge Bird, his championship rival, for the lead of the race. He needs to finish ahead of Alexander Bird. That much is obvious, because he is 179 points back. You can't rely on Bird to make a mistake and lose a couple hundred points in a round. He needs to finish ahead of him consistently, as Jackson Harlow has been black flagged. A 30-second hold, I believe he's been black flagged. So he's copped a severe penalty there as Harlow.
We saw him involved in one of the numerous incidents on the restart from the safety car. I can only assume that that's what it's about. So hearing an incident with Silvassi. So the run back up through the field for Jackson Suzlin Harlow after starting from the pit lane is unfortunately going to take a very significant setback, because that is a large penalty.
You know how I mentioned I wouldn't be surprised if those drivers up in the top 10 again? So Zachary Hamlin's back into 6th. Szlowski, who I think's been off the track about 2 or 3 times and facing backwards a number of times, is back into 9th as well. So the attrition rate is through the roof at the moment, and drivers are being afforded the ability to make a mistake, and they're sort of ending up back where they were in the first place. Hanlon, though, is under review for another incident. It's not Hamlin that's under review, but car 6 is. And car 6 is, Cameron Dance.
We've got car 6, which is Cameron Dance. We've got car 06, which is Bo Albert. So you just got to not get those two confused. Jackson Susan Harlow here in 9th. Still got a penalty. He's going to need to serve. The car in front of him is Scott Solowski. I believe took a new set of tyres underneath the safety car. He's the highest running driver potentially with a new set of tyres on. So that could work out interesting for him later on. He's still under significant pressure from JSH. Gets a good run through the lower S's. Slots right into the draft. But we know you can't really go side by side up the hill here. There's some braking opportunities later on. You could try and make something happen. Huge wiggle.
That was a big wiggle there through the S's, and here's a replay of that big moment for Jackson Harlow up and over the curbs, through the roller coaster section, and they had 2 stabs to save that car. That was fantastic car control from the Ultimate Esports driver. And side by side for 10th place, Ryan Jarek and Jackson Walls. Walls has lost a few spots at this corner. I dare say he may be struggling at the oak tree a few hundred meters further back, because that might be giving him the poor run that's seeing him lose the spots at the end of that back straightaway at turn 14 and 14A.
Just didn't seem as confident on the brakes either, and didn't have a fantastic run in a straight line. Just saw JSH pull into the pit lane to presumably serve that penalty. That's going to drop him a long way back. These cars continue on past him, and Scott Solowski suddenly is under far less pressure than he was earlier.
Here he is. Adam Briggs just made a mistake and went off the track all by himself, allowing 1 or 2 cars to go by him, and someone else is off too, Josh Perween, at exactly the same corner. So I've got no explanation for it, Dave, as to why these guys are struggling so much. It's a high-speed track, but you would suspect they've done enough practice to be able to deal with that. But it's been a tough race. Maybe the fact they've got to do an hour and a half is potentially getting to them today. You wouldn't expect to see those sorts of mistakes until potentially after the halfway mark, which is just about 6 minutes away. So we're getting through this race at a pretty high rate of speed. The battle up front continues to rage, with just a second covering the top 3 drivers, pretty much lapping all the same times. That's a trick car on the fence. Oh, Scott Sazowski. I said he was doing a good job to come back up the field, but it looks like he's found the fence through Oak Tree.
Yeah, he was in 8th or so. Now he's come into Oak Tree. Tiny bit of grass between the 2 apexes, and that's sent him around. He does miss that barrier very luckily, but a difficult place to rejoin. He had to wait for a couple of cars, loses a bunch of time. That's just coming into that corner a little bit too hot.
I wonder if there's a tailwind somewhere around this track that's pushing the brake markers a few meters earlier, and some of them not adjusting to it as much as they maybe should be. That's the only explanation I can offer up for the attrition in this one so far.
Healy gets a great run off Hogpen and is very quickly to the inside of Josh Perveen, who we saw off the circuit a little bit earlier. So Healy almost entirely clear before the braking zone. He's going to move back up through the field a little bit. Has he already served his penalty? Yes, he has. So that's why he's down in 18th. And now with a couple more cars to overtake. Plenty of action for him, but not the kind of points haul he was looking for. 6th and 7th, though, that's much higher up the order. Reese Keane and Zach Hanlon. Keane is up 13 positions since the start of this race. I think he must have just been in a good spot through the restart. He's now going to come under a bit of pressure from Hanlon, I think.
I believe he just got by Zachary Hanlon, actually. They were scored. Reese Keane was scored behind Hanlon when they crossed the line, so I suspect he's just got the move done at the first corner. I'll tell you what, though. We'll go back to the battle for second, because Rizzo is piling on the pressure on Trent Thomas right now. He doesn't want to make it be too aggressive, because they are teammates, of course, but he needs to start thinking about getting some more points. He's got a good run here. along the main straight, past that start-finish line. He should be able to slip up the inside at turn 1, as long as he doesn't outbrake himself. All he needs to do is outbrake Thomas. It looks like he's done that pretty nicely. Thomas potentially looking for the cutback. Won't get the run he needs though, and that's up into second place for Rizzo. And that slowed them both down just a bit and allowed Worley to close up, and now he will be in the position of Rizzo, staring at the back of that one of many Trick Sim Sport cars out on track today. Well, now that Rizzo's in clean air, let's see if he can go by and go forward and get by Bird, because even behind Trent Thomas last time by, he was about half a tenth quicker than Bird.
Yeah, Trent Thomas had dropped more than a second off the lead, so I think Rizzo was sort of running out of patience to just ride along behind. Now he's got to try and close in the gap to the lead of the race. Hanlon, under yet more pressure, just gone and lost a spot to Ryan Jerrick. So maybe the tyre's just wearing out or something for Hanlon, or he's made a bit of a mistake somewhere along the lines. Jerrick has just grabbed that spot away from him. We'll see. Hanlon's obviously 2 tires up on the grass there. Understeer, couldn't turn into the corner. He's rejoined. He's tried to keep Ryan Jerrick behind him, but Jerrick was just closing in too quickly. Tries to go around the outside of the entry into the S's. It's a bold move, but he has stuck it. That was very, very brave indeed from Ryan Jerrick. Saw that opportunity, had the momentum, and knew he couldn't wait another corner.
Yeah, indeed. In the meantime, Jackson Harlow has retired from this race, and he is our second retirement, joining Brett Gananzi. I just noticed Bo Albert's dropped all the way back to 23rd place as a result of his incidents earlier on. This battle for third place, though, Thomas is under pressure from Worley. He is struggling at the moment for some speed in that car, contrary to Ross Rizzo, is just reeled in 3/10 on Alexander Bird. He's got some great pace in that machine. Worley has got some pace too, a bit too aggressive over that curb, lost a bit of time. And do not get your line wrong through here. If you stuff up just one part of either of these two S's sections, you're going to find yourself 9 times out of 10 barreling off the track at the next part, because it's a high speed left-right. You don't have time to react if you make a mistake. Further back, about to go through that particular section is Jerrick and Zachary Hanlon. I think Hanlon's lost another spot because he was up there with Reese Keane. Now Jerrick's gone up and is the car behind Keane, so Hanlon's going backwards too. James Mackay, wasn't he off the track at some point? Didn't he get a penalty at some point? He got 2 penalties.
He's been through the pit lane 3 times.
Wow.
Compared to Zach Hanlon's been through the pit lane once. And now I think Mackay is closing in on Hanlon just a little bit. Hanlon's been maybe pushing the car a bit too hard, struggling a little bit. So we did see the move of Jerrick on Hanlon. And I thought maybe Hanlon would have the pace to come back at Jerrick, but hasn't quite worked out. And while he's being maybe held up behind a little bit, James Mackay is indeed closing down on Hanlon.
Check out Worley. He's pulling out the draft. Thomas is going defensive into turn 1, forcing him to look the long way. He'll look for the switchback through the corner, won't get the turn in he needs. Thomas, though, a bit loose on the exit of the corner. The rear tire's not gripping as he would like. And under absolute all sorts right now, lapping half a second off the pace of Bird and Rizzo in front, holding up Philip Worley, and not quite being caught by Neil Pearson. I think these two still have enough of a gap and pace advantage to stop themselves from either of them, stop them from go any further down the order. So at least they have that to think of. They're not likely to lose too many more spots in the next few laps at least, so they can afford, Worley can afford to be a bit patient here, pick his spot, as they both run 2 tires off the track. Coming through there, following exactly in the tire tracks of Trent Thomas is Philip Worley. See the top down view how that gap closes, then opens up again through the entry and the exit of the corner. The gap now 4 tenths of a second. There we go.
Goes up a little bit down the long back straight too as Worley gets into the slipstream, but doesn't get close enough to make a move there. I think it's through Hogpen at the bottom of the hill here that Worley's really looked the strongest. Difficult corner to get right. If you get the throttle open nice and early, he might get another good run off there. And indeed, he has, staying again just 3/10 behind. Maybe not as close as the last 2 laps where Thomas really had to defend the inside. Woolley is going to think about it again. Not close enough. Breaks deep around the outside and once again puts the pressure on Trent Thomas, whose pace has just, I don't know, fallen away a little bit in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, only sort of explanation for that is that he's just used up those tyres a bit too much and is certainly struggling at the moment. Rizzo isn't incredibly consistent with his lap times. He's gaining on a couple of laps, but this lap he's half a second slower than Bird and lost everything he'd clawed in after getting by Trent Thomas. So Rizzo's got a bit of work to do. Hopefully for him, the second pit stop will claw him a little bit closer to the back of that number 82 machine that is so often out front. If he wins today, it'll be 5 from 9, over 50% of the series to date, which is a staggering conversion rate.
Yeah, it would be very, very dominant. Watching on board from James McKee, he's trying to hunt down Zach Hamlin, and it's been brought to our attention, and I've double checked it, that McKee took new tyres during his pit stop behind the safety car. Hamlin still running the tyres he started the race with. Here's Woolley with a much better run on Trent Thomas. They make a bit of contact. That's fine.
And both of them are off the track. Where's the next car in line? Neil Pearson. I said they probably weren't going to catch them. Well, he has now, because Pearson will go by Philip Woolley, and there was a bit of a hip check through the corner. Thomas has gone off the track again, and Pearson will surely go by him now.
Look at the replay.
Oh, no! Oh, into the barrier! Big crash! Trent Thomas, Philip Woolley, and Neil Pearson all coming together in what was an incident that did not need to happen. And I suspect that Trent Thomas, has brought out the caution. Safety car out again for Trent Thomas's car, stranded at the tyre barrier on the entry.
So we continue watching the replay. There must have been some damage there for Trent Thomas, because he's gone and missed the entry to Hog Pen. Neil Pearson goes to the inside, tries to close the door. Maybe Thomas was going for the pit lane, had a car to the inside. All three come together. Thomas stuck in the tyres and just managed to pop himself out at the end there, but you could see in the background, way off through the grass, was the drivers of Pearson and Philip Woolley. They've gone on a massive adventure, huge damage to the front of Neil Pearson. It's ripped off significant amounts of that car. Headlights gone, bumper gone. Here it is. Pearson goes to the inside, and I think Trent Thomas must have been going for the pit lane there, because he missed one of the corners after the contact. Looked like he probably had suspension damage. He's going for the pit lane. Pearson trying to take the inside, and the two come together. And then Woolley gets collected like a pinball in all of it.
That was just all very messy there, and I agree that Thomas is probably trying to get down to pit lane, and I don't know, I think it's a tough situation there. It's split-second stuff, and you can see the severity of that crash. Big impact for all the cars involved there, and that's bunched the field back up. How much time left in this race? About 35, that's not right. 40 minutes.
I busted out my calculator, okay? And this is going to be interesting for you. I believe that if a full tank of fuel in these GTE cars does 1 hour, then a 60% tank under green flag conditions would let them do 36 minutes. We've got 40 minutes still to go. Everyone will probably be able to get to the end on fuel from here if they fill it up under this safety car, and there's only 36 minutes or so left when we go green after the safety car. See, the clutch is in for our leader, Alexander Bird. Is he thinking of staying out and making a green flag stop later, or is he also going to pit under this second safety car? I think we're right on the edge of drivers being able to pit and get to the end at the end of this safety car.
I think you'd probably... I think I'd pit and just try and save a little bit under the green flag. There's always a chance of another safety car as well. So, I don't know. I'd pit under the safety car and I think if the leaders pitted, someone like Alexander Bird, Ross Rizzo, most of the field would probably mirror that decision. And that would probably negate any loss you would see from going down the order. So if I was these two, I'd pit. But as I've said before, when it comes to predicting strategy, I'm absolutely hopeless.
I'm going to throw my reputation on the line then and say I think these two guys will pit and be able to get to the end just after this safety car. In fact, safety car's going a little bit slower than I thought. The lap's a bit longer than I thought. I think everyone is good to pit from here and get to the end, because we're going to have at least one more lap behind the safety car. They haven't even got to the pit in, and the lights are still on. So definitely when we see the green flag again, there'll be under 36 minutes of racing left. I reckon they can do it. And I think you'd be very, very bold to stay out and take a green flag stop when a lot of your competitors will pit now and be able to get to the end.
Well, we just have about a sector and a half left of this track before that occurs. Well, we know what happened on the last restart. Absolute calamity up and down the field. Will this next one be any cleaner? I certainly hope so, because that was all a bit messy last time, and there's a lot of drivers out there already sporting a bit of damage. First car with notable damage, probably Jackson Walls. His rear end just above the diffuser has caved in a bit from... He's been in the wars today. In fact, everyone from 5th on back has been in the wars today and has somehow found their way back up, so...
How is Neil Pearson's car still going? I mean,
There's also that.
It's missing everything forward of the front wheels, and still it's going. I hope he'll be able to get that fixed. Pit
They're all in.
Would be open this time, and indeed everyone except Walls is coming.
Well, now is the pit stop, when if you can afford to, short fuel the car. But I dare say, with how tight we think it is, I don't think anyone will be. It should be a full tank of fuel for everyone up and down this pit lane. We'll watch the cars now. We'll watch the pit exit and see who comes out ahead. We suspect it'll be Alexander Bird, and it is Alexander Bird quite comfortably ahead of Rizzo. And a big gap back to third place, Reese Keane. Jarek's gained a bit there. Worley, Hanlon, Mackay, Dance, Ratu, Briggs. No big changes up and down the field through that round of stops.
I tell you what, though, the likes of Pearson and the fact that Philip Worley is still in 6th is massively lucky. That the incident he got sort of brought into is still brought out the safety car that let him hold on to 6th place. Maybe he got a little bit of damage repaired as well in that stop. So everyone, the whole field pitting except Walls, pitted.
And on tyre change watch, everyone behind Josh Perwin. I'm not sure whether that includes Josh Perwin, but we know everyone behind him. So yeah, everyone including Perwin and then on back took tyres. So they're the guys to watch for: Perwin, Wasan, Mizomo, Bo Albert, Neil Pearson, although that car is still on pit lane with a lot of damage. So only about 4 cars opted to take tyres that time round.
How come, right, he's entirely lost the headlights and the front bumper, and yet when they try and fix it, the one that goes on is bent? They pulled out, like, because obviously whatever front bumper was on that car when it went into that crash is gone and disappeared into the hills of Virginia, and they've pulled one out of the trailer to replace it, and it was already bent. I'm not sure about that, but obviously long stop for Pearson, getting as much damage as he can get fixed.
There's some dodgy pit crew members out on track today. We've seen that. Pit crew for Cameron Dance making his rear wing even worse than it was before. And now the pit crew for Neil Pearson putting on a shonky looking front bumper bar on his machine. So some interesting repairing tactics up and down the iRacing pit lane. they've gone full simulation in that regard, haven't they, Dave?
Yeah, so Pearson took 2 minutes and 11 seconds in that pit box, about as long as he could, and still rejoin the race on the lead lap. So now he's going to try and catch up to the back of the field. He's gotten some amount of repairs done to that car, but he's all the way down in 22nd. Now, it doesn't look too bad. I apologise for what I said about the work of that BMW pit crew.
He might have a hard time of it, though, catching this field, because they're about to go green. Jackson Walls will lead them to the green. Trent Thomas is in second place, and he's a lap down, so there's a laps car between Walls and Bird. Walls pins the throttle. It immediately looks like a cleaner restart for the first half a dozen spots. First car to go side by side is going to be Zachary Hanlon, and then Philip Worley. Hanlon almost a carbon copy of Bo Albert, and he's going to go to the inside, 3 wide, and contact, and around he goes in the middle of turn 1. Worley gets collected as well, and someone else involved in that as well was the car on the outside, Reese Keane, who's been collected in an unfortunate incident there, and just too deep on the brakes for Zachary Hanlon. Worley was unfortunate to get involved. Keane was unfortunate as well, both innocent bystanders in that one. And another messy incident on the restart of a race here in SSA tonight. Here's the replay.
So we look at Hanlon. He's got a great run right up behind Philip Worley. He goes all the way to the inside. Then he tries to go down the inside of Jarek as well. He's clear of those three, but he comes in, locks up, and then tags Reese Keane, then rolls backwards into Philip Worley, who's been tangled up in a few incidents of other drivers, and he's going to need his own Hello Darkness, my old friend. But unfortunate for Worley.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate there, and another chapter to the story. Black flag just got issued to Trent Thomas, car number 87. So he's going to come down pit lane, already a lap down. That's not going to help his cause get the lead lap back at some stage today. As Jackson Walls continues to lead this race, though, he's not been passed immediately by Bird, although that's not to say Bird is not there with him, because Rizzo's there with him as well. The top 3 covered by, or could be covered by, about a blanket heading down into turn 1, just ahead of the car on screen, Adam Briggs. As Rizzo and, oh, look at this, the top 3 battle. Come on, Jay, let's have a look at the top 3, because they almost made contact through turn 1 as Briggs went up the inside of, I can only assume, Cameron Dance. Again, rear wing was a bit bent there. Bird's checked himself up to try and get a run, I do suspect, through the next part of the track, but maybe just a mistake. Walls just made a mistake and ran wide. This closes the gap once again, and Bird will want to get by before Rizzo gets by him. As a penalty issued to Neil Pearson, 30-second hold. Penalty issued to Zachary Hanlon, a drive-through penalty. And another spate of black flags come from race control in response to the restart.
Yeah, busy race control. Jackson Walls leading the race, still needs one more pit stop. Everyone behind him pitted under that safety car and will get to the end. So for the moment, it's really just holding up Bird and Rizzo. Walls will have to pit again sometime soon. It's just a matter of how much longer is he going to stay out. And in the position he's in, he'd be best served to stay out as long as he can, so that he doesn't end up too far down the field, relying on the field spread to maybe get him some positions. Bird, though, couldn't make a move into the roller coaster, and that keeps Rizzo tucked up right behind, and then Ryan Jarek as well in 4th place. James McKee, the adventures this man has had 4 times down the pit lane so far this race, now fueled to the end in 5th place, with a car in front that needs to make one more pit stop functionally, running in 4th.
Some amazing stories of redemption up and down this field as Walls is going defensive on Alexander Bird. And Rizzo doesn't look like he wants to fight his trick teammate just yet. Well, Walls is on a different strategy. Surely there's no way he can go to the end. Well, he hasn't made 2 pit stops, so we know he can't. He has to make 2 pit stops in this race, so he's going to have to pit. Not sure what he's going to gain by defending here, other than slowing himself down in the guys he's going to come out and race alongside with when he does eventually make that pit stop under green flag conditions. So This is be doing nothing but infuriating Bird, Rizzo, and Jarek, who are just tucked up behind him, unable to make moves with anyone at the moment.
Everyone else took about 12 to 15 seconds of fuel at that last stop. Pit lane transit time looks like it's about another 15 seconds on top of that. So really, Walls is probably looking at about 30 seconds total in the pit lane. And if he drops back 30 seconds from now, he'd be running dead last. So he needs to stay out, put in quicker laps than a lot of the cars further down the order, and hope that he doesn't come out in dead last. Here goes a move from Bradley Ratu on James Mackay, and Ratu, deeper on the brakes, is going to get it as long as he can get it stopped and turned in, and he can. So now Ratu is net fourth, and he's right up behind Ryan Jarrett too. Great run from Ratu, being held up a little bit, but if he can get a good run out of Hogpen, he could almost find himself looking at a podium.
He certainly could. I thought he was going to fire into the back of the car in front through that corner. Oh, who's that into the fence in the background? Kozlowski. He hasn't made the fence the second time I've done that today, but more issues for Kozlowski not having the sort of race as his trick teammate, second and third, Bird and Rizzo. It's a 5-6 car train for the lead of the race. It could be joined by Briggs and Healy in a mere matter of corners, because Walls is the cork on the bottle right now. No one can find a way through. I'll give him credit for holding his spot, because he's got the fastest drivers in the race lined up behind him, and they cannot find a way by him.
And we were wondering about the straight line performance of Wall's car earlier in the race, knowing there was a little bit of damage on the back of it. Does not seem to be a problem now, and he's getting the traction down right out of every corner. Bird just can't get close enough to make a move. This will be his best opportunity. Check it right there, contact Jarek and Rizzo. Rizzo losing positions, Jarek on the brakes, too deep.
That is disastrous for Ross Rizzo. He goes back to 12th place, and his championship campaign just took a big hit with that. This is the onboard from Ryan Jarrett. You're looking forward at the rear end of Ross Rizzo's machine into Oak Tree on the brakes, outbrakes himself straight into the back of Rizzo, and he is extremely unlucky there, and that is absolutely gifted a free kick in the championship fight to Alexander Bird, who now has a full 10 spots ahead of Rizzo in the race.
Yeah, Walls was really backing up the whole pack through Oak Tree, and Bird had to slow down more than he would have liked. Rizzo had to slow down more than he would have liked, and Jarek just came in too hot. Would have been fine if there was no cars in front. He would have made the corner. But the guys in front were slower than normal, slower than he expected, and unfortunately he's cleaned up Ross Rizzo.
And a penalty has been issued to Ryan Jarek as a result of that. Not too surprising, that one. It's a 10-car train for the lead of the race. 11 cars, actually, because Bo Albert's on the back of Cameron Dance. And anything can happen when you have a 10, 11-car train for the lead of the race. Walls still leads, but Bird and Bradley Ratu closer than they've ever been. Ratu could well win this race from 10th on the grid. With the way things are going, he's steadily climbing and keeping himself out of trouble. Although, I say that, I've realised even he was off the track at one stage in this race, facing backwards at turn 14A, which they are approaching in a couple moments' time. So, if he can win this race, that'd be astounding, as behind them, James Mackay is going to try and have a look up the inside of Ryan Jarek. Deep on the brakes, clears him. Great move as Bradley Ratu had a look at Alexander Bird, and there was almost contact as Walls, a big wiggle in front of them, maybe looking at his mirror just a bit too much. And this is heating up very nicely with just about 24 minutes left in this race.
Great run from Ratu. Bird's going defensive all the way to the right-hand side of the circuit. Jarek comes in to serve his penalty. Here comes Ratu, not close enough into turn one. Is battling over these guys for second. Walls backs Bird right up. Bird's in a tough spot here. A lot of quick drivers behind, but he can't quite get past Walls in front. He's holding him up just a little bit.
Oh, off the track goes Adam Briggs in the background in the championship. Rizzo back up into 11th. There is still a chance of him getting a top 10 spot. I'd say a very likely chance of that. Maybe even top 5 with the way this train is continuing to pound around this 5.26 kilometer circuit. So not all hope lost for Rizzo. Just a big hit is all. And a chance at the win out the window, you would suspect. Bird, I suspect at this stage, is probably not really bothering trying to pass walls. He knows he's going to have to make another pit stop, and is probably just content on staying behind. And maybe he's a bit short on fuel. I'm just trying to save a bit of fuel, but I'm a bit stumped as to why he hasn't gone by, because I would have thought for sure that he would have had the pace to get it done. Although, to the outside, almost squeezed onto the grass by Walls, and a big checkup ensues behind. Mackay almost lost it on the brakes. Another penalty issued to Ryan Jarrett. I believe potentially the same issue as Mackay, an incorrect service of the initial penalty. So, yep, same issue as Mackay. And now Walls dives into the lane, but it might be too late for Bird, because Bradley Ratu is right in his draft down the main straight as a replay comes up on the screen of Danny Davison getting rotated for what is, I think, the 3rd time today. Bo Albert through into 7th place through all that. And now Bird leads this one on track as well as provisionally. He leads this one from Ratu. Mackay in a podium spot after 2 drive-through penalties. And Briggs going defensive, forcing Healy to turn him around. And Briggs now faces backwards. The latest driver to add his name to backwards facing list tonight. And Ross Rizzo will see that car. And Bo Halbert further up, round the outside of Martin Silvassi. Fantastic move. Here's the replay of what's unfolded. This was the contact with Silvassi and Briggs.
Hard to say from that angle. It always an aggressive move to try and go down the inside there. Here's Albert going around the outside of Silvassi for that spot. Maybe Worley closed the door a little bit, and it looked like the move was being set up for quite a while. Huge shunt for Albert just there.
He's gone into the fence at almost the exact moment he was given a black flag as well, and now retires from the race. I wonder whether this was a distraction from Albert, noticing he'd been given a black flag. Yeah, that's a poor decision from Albert there. Maybe a technical failure, but it does appear as if he's just driven himself into the wall in reaction to that penalty. I will say no more on that one.
Yeah, a bit disappointing there, but the battle for the lead. Ratu is still doing a good job to stick with Bird, even though Bird has been released since Jackson Walls pitted. Bird hasn't scampered away, but it has spread out our top 10 a lot more than they were earlier, as well as some of those little incidents that we've seen. Ratu picks up a bit of grass there on the right-hander into the S's, though. That slows him down, cost him a couple of tenths, and Mackay in 3rd will now try and size him up. Bird almost has a 1-second lead.
Almost, but not quite. The battle's going to be for 2nd place, it seems, because Mackay has stayed stuck to the back of the XG Motorsports car in 2nd place and is putting Ratu under a lot of pressure right now. And Bird is, checking out at front. The gap's opened up even on this lap to over a second now. A big train of cars, as you mentioned, has fanned itself out and it's left some big movers in the field up on the top 10 spots. Mizomo up 12, Dance up 14, Silvassi up 9, Mackay, up 12, but up a lot more than that too when you consider his race he's had, as another penalty issued for Michael Healy.
It's interesting, that would be in that contact we'd seen with Worley, I would think. Worley right now running around in 11th, trying to hunt down Simon Mizomo in 10th. The next FT1 Porsche up the road, Cam Dance in 6th, carrying that rear wing that we've said so much about, but trying to size up a top 5. Oh, too deep on the brakes. That's out on the grass for Worley. He's been distracted. He's locked it up. He's gone in too deep, and he's going to lose a lot of spots.
Certainly is, and that's a shame for him. He was having a pretty good go of it there, and has come unstuck. Rizzo is now on the back of Adam Briggs for what's going to be 8th place in this one. 18 minutes left to go. If he gets this one done, he suspects potentially Danny Davis and Cameron Dance, maybe Silvassi could be in his sight, so potentially a top 5, but he needs to be mistake-free and get by these drivers very quickly at the first opportunity. His first opportunity is going to come at turn 14 if he gets a good exit here from Oak Tree.
Yeah, he tries, and pretty even between the two drivers. Rizzo will now be in that long slipstream, sort of down the hill, up the hill, over the crest, and then down the hill again. Rizzo closing, but is he closing quick enough to have a look on the brakes? Doesn't quite feel like it at the moment. He's gonna think about it though. No sign of saving fuel at all from Rizzo there. He's just trying to punch on, get up some more positions. It's forced Briggs a tiny bit offline, but he'll get back on the racing line through Hogpen, and the exit out of here is going to be critical. Huge amount of air riding across that curb on the inside for both drivers.
And now it seems that Briggs potentially letting Rizzo go. That seemed a bit too easy for a proper racing manoeuvre. I think Briggs rolled over for Rizzo there, maybe recognising that he is in a championship fight, not wanting to race him too hard. Now he's going to have to set his sights on Davison and Dance, who are, look down at the timing screen, about 4 seconds in front of him. But I do feel he
Ratu's off the
yeah, there. Ratu's got off the track.
Ratu's off.
Second.
Lost the position to Mackay. He's lost the position to Healy. Here comes Silvassi with a big run. Will Silvassi be able to get the move done? He will. He'll get to the inside before the climbing S's. So Ratu, I think he's put 2 tyres on the grass, pushed a little bit wide, and it's cost him a couple of positions. The replay will tell us if I'm correct, but we've seen a couple of drivers do that. The entry to the S's here, there's 2 right-hand corners, and if you just get 2 tyres on the grass there, indeed goes out a long way. The track gets away from him, and it takes him a while to rejoin, and he's lost all that momentum.
He certainly has. He's gone all the way back now to 5th place and has released Mackay into 2nd. Astonishing drive from him to come back from all the drama if he can maintain it for the last 16 minutes of the race. There's a big battle going on for 5th place. Silvassi just ahead of Ratu and Cameron Dance. Danny Davison right in behind Cameron Dance. And then off the track, Adam Briggs. A few cars behind them, so Briggs with another excursion off of the track. That one I believe was at 14B. Or at the final corner actually. And that's relieved the pressure off Ross Rizzo, who is closing by 3/10 a lap on the guys in front of him.
We'll see what happened to Briggs. There was a huge slide coming into the corner from the downhill left, I think. Maybe the brake balance is a bit too far back for Briggs. You'll see it in the onboard here. He loses the rear of the car very, very early here. It's sliding across the apex. He has to try and save it, and that puts him all the way out in the countryside. It takes him a long time to get it back on the circuit. We saw Healy come in and serve his penalty. So now this battle between Dance and Davison is over 5th place, and it looks like Dance struggles a little bit for the straight line speed, but he's not short on confidence despite that rear wing as it is. So this is going to be possibly one of Davison's best opportunities. Got a good run out of the corner, and once they get up to about 6th gear or so, Dance kind of runs out of steam a little bit.
Let's see, the closing rate is getting quicker and quicker the faster the cars get, but not quick enough and not close enough for Davison that time by. But a little mistake for Dance. He was a bit wide through 14B, compromised himself for the next couple of corners, going through where Adam Briggs made his mistake last time around. And this is a good exit for Danny Davison. The bad news for him is that Dance will be getting a distant draft off the car in front of him, Bradley Ratu, And now Davison's going to look to the inside, but he's not close enough. Dance fends him off by hitting his markers perfectly there.
Yeah, Dance was deep on the brakes to try and defend, but he still made the corner. And these two are almost closing in on Ratu in front as well. So great battle over that final podium spot.
Great battle indeed for what is second best of the rest for this race. Bird's been untouched out front in what has been an absolutely chaotic race behind him. And it's not over yet by any means of the sort. Good battle too for 6th place, a few cars back. Silvassi is being rapidly caught by Rizzo, who is on that charge. He may yet be able to get into 3rd place. He's only about 2 seconds behind them now. 5 seconds. 5 seconds behind, but it really doesn't seem like that much when you look at it on track. As to the left-hand side, and easy move there for Rizzo. Silvassi lets him go, Trick Sim Sports teammates, and not too surprised by that one. So Rizzo will continue, and now he's got to try and close up the battle for 3rd place. If these guys start battling and going side by side, he'll close up in a flash.
Yeah, indeed. He's, as you point out, only a couple seconds back from grabbing the draft off that battle that's for 3rd place. And we've seen that it can be difficult to stick a clean overtaking move. So when Davison tries to get past Dance, or if Dance closes up on Ratu, there's all the possibility for something to go wrong there, or for them to just battle side by side for a bit and lose a chunk of time. It's definitely not over for Rizzo back in 6th at the moment. You can see him in the back of this shot as we see Davison's putting a little bit more pressure on Dance than Dance is putting on Ratu. I think the slipstream from Ratu is keeping Dance in play.
Yeah, it certainly is. Davison is probably... his best opportunity is probably still at the end of the back straight or the end of the main straight. I would say that, well, it doesn't seem that Dance is losing out too much in terms of performance from that wonky rear wing that he's got. So when he's uninhibited, when he's got a draft off Ratu in front as well, it does make it very tough to make a move at the most popular spots on the track. I just had a look. Ross Rizzo, 41.8, players in front of him, 42.4, 42.1, 42.2. 3 to 4 tenths quicker than these guys. Surely he gets there with about a lap or so to spare if he continues at this rate. And that doesn't include if these guys start battling. And Ratu's slowly being caught by Cameron Dance too. So by no means is Ratu secure in 3rd, because Dance is going to push him right to the line.
Yeah, precisely. By most calculations, I'd say 7 laps to go right now. Rizzo's going half a second a lap faster on some laps, though not quite on that lap. He was a little bit closer, but he can definitely still get there. Pitted on the same lap as all the guys in front. They all would have about the same fuel. I don't think it's a fuel saving concern for any of these guys.
No, I think with how long that safety car was out and how long the lap is to it, burnt down a lot of time in the race and has allowed these guys to breathe easy with their fuel numbers. We thought initially with that last safety car, or the most recent safety car came out, that fuel would be marginal whether to pit or not. But by the time we got round to the pit lane being open, it was a definite, you have to come in because you got to make it on fuel almost easily here. And we're seeing the result of that, a hard-fought sprint race off the last restart to the end.
10 minutes to go. So into the final phase of this race, and the first 80 minutes were absolutely action-packed, and some of that is evidenced by the fact that almost every corner we see, there's some kind of car tracks off through the grass at just about every conceivable point around this circuit, because no matter where you chose to set up your tent, you'd see something interesting, I'm sure. Dance is really, I don't know, is it the Porsche's looking after the tyres better deeper into this race? He's definitely a lot closer to Ratu than he looked earlier. Through some of the more technical sections, he looks really good on the brakes, for example, into turn 1, and and turn 3 and then the lower S's as well.
He certainly does, and he's definitely getting closer. He did a 42.2, so another 10th that time. He's taking about a 10th out of him every time they go through. Rizzo, as you mentioned, has sort of plateaued out in his quest to close up, and it's not pulling away from Silvassi all that much, so Rizzo might have burnt up his tyres just a bit. That spin won't have helped him either, as Alex Court has brought his DPR machine down into pit lane.
And that's for the 4th time, and he's going to take a bit of pit service there. So Court going to be all the way down towards 20th place or so. Problems for Adam Briggs though. I heard that he went for a bit of a spin. I don't know, was he helped? That's just before the lower S's towards NASCAR bend and left hook there. So in his pursuit of the drivers in front, he might have just overcooked it himself. Almost the outside tyres on the grass at the point of turn-in was very, very close, and then he's looped it around there. He would have been trying to catch Philip Worley and Michael Healy. And how do you see that? Do you think the tyres were on the grass, or just the brake balance was too far back?
It's really hard to tell that one, to be honest. I think either way, a bit of a mistake late in the race as the concentration lapses just a bit for Adam Briggs, who's had a number of offs today. And that hasn't stopped the drivers in 3rd, 4th and 5th though, because Dance has got a bent rear wing. Davison's been turned and spun around and facing the wrong way about half a dozen times probably, I'd say. Ratu's been in his fair share of trouble as well. I think he was facing backwards at one point too, so... And they're still only 7.6 seconds off the lead of the race, so it's been a tale of... I think almost everyone in this race has at some point been off the track except Alexander Bird.
Feels like it. Big airtime riding across the curbs for Cameron Dance, and that's probably actually not the quickest way through that corner. He lost out a couple of car lengths because he had to wait to put the throttle down. Just let Davison once again close up. You need to be alongside coming into the climbing S's to do anything about it through here, and he loses out a couple of car lengths there because Dance looks so good going up those S's compared to Davison.
He does, and potentially a spot where that Porsche has a bit of an advantage as compared to the BMW, both behind and in front. The BMW sandwich right now is Bradley Ratu. 6 minutes, 23 seconds remain on the clock, so that will be, where's Bird? That'll be about 4 laps left in this race. Time starting to wind down for these guys to make their way onto the final podium step. Ratu, all he's got to do is just keep hitting his markers and don't make a mistake. Everyone has made a mistake at some point today, it seems. Don't add yet another car to that list of attrition and mistakes and off-track excursions, because if he looks back a couple car spots, he'll see that Davison's putting pressure on Dance. So Dance has got a bit of pressure himself, and he's going to have to be watching his mirrors as much as he's watching that that rear bumper of the XG car in front.
He'll close up so close through turn 1. Deeper in the field, Jackson Walls and Ryan Jarek have switched places a couple of times. Right now, Jarek has that spot. So I think there might have been Walls has that spot. So we look, they're side by side coming down the back stretch and into somewhere else. But problems for Pervine as we look live. I'd gotten confused what was going on with Jarek and Walls there, but obviously Jarek having served a penalty and Walls having had to pit under green flag. They're battling deep in the field.
Oh, a mistake there from Cameron Dance. Just popped almost the entire car wide and off onto the grass on the corner before the oak tree, and this has allowed Davison right up onto the back of him, and he might be close enough for a move, but I think it was a pretty good exit for Cameron Dance coming off oak tree, and that might be his saviour, although Davison's certainly close enough to think about it. Almost alongside him, he leaves in the room, using the curb to not go into the side of Dance, who holds him off around the outside. Great defence there from Cameron Dance, and this is allowing Ratu to pull out to about a 7 or 8 car length advantage now.
It was well driven by those two guys because we've seen a move like that end in tiers half a dozen times in this race. I think it was a measured approach from both. Dance defended but not too heavily, and Davison knew when the move wasn't quite going to stick. He'll have a look to the inside just to give Dance something to think about. Dance goes in a bit deep, and Davison, I think, he's got his nose in front, but he'll have the outside for the next corner. Dance going to try to hold on to it. Nose to nose, Dance just holds on to 4th place there.
Yeah, you said Davison was just showing his nose to make Dance think about it, and he made Dance think about it a bit too hard. He locked up a tyre, red wide, and just a bit of pressure to Cameron Dance now, and he's fallen off the back of Ratu. And Davison, occupying that final top 5 spot, is ruining a chance probably to get into 3rd place, but he wants to get up into 4th place at least. He knows that Dance probably isn't going to get that move done on Ratu. He wants to at least take that 4th spot away from Dance through Oak Tree for what should be the 2nd or 3rd last time today. Bradley Ratu, I think, barring mistakes, will probably have 3rd place wrapped up, but the battle is going to go to the end for 4th place, as most of the field is a pretty good 3-car scrap further down too for 9th place. It might be worth keeping an eye on, that we are looking at actually. Reese Keane, Philip Worley, and Michael Healy. Worley there in the middle, looking to the inside of Reese Keane, just like Davison did to Cameron Dance a lap ago, but he's not as close as Davison was, and backs out of that one, and almost backs up into the front bumper of Michael Healy. Josh Perween and Adam Briggs aren't too far off the back of this one either. That's pretty much the closest battle in the field, with the exception of that one between Dance, Ratu, and Davison. Across the start-finish line, flashing the lights, is that Trick Sim Sports car of Michael Healy in 11th place, wanting to find a way back into the top 10 after that incident on the first restart with Bo Albert, where he squeezed and made contact and ended up spearing off to the inside. And I think he had more issues further on around that lap as well.
Now, I think Healy has served 2 penalties in this race so far. Bradley Ratu in 3rd is cleared off though, and it's just this battle for 4th and 5th. And Davison's over the back of Dance, and now that Dance doesn't have as much of a slipstream from the car in front, I think it's putting him under a little more pressure from Davison once again.
Certainly is. We'll keep an eye on this, but Michael Healy did just go by Philip Worley for 10th place into the roller coaster section, as Cameron Dance has got enough of a gap to avoid being pressured into turn 14A and 14B. A minute left on the clock. This is the penultimate time through these corners. Davison almost got up into the back of Cameron Dance there, into the corner late on the brakes, as late as he dared, almost too late there, as Alexander Bird's going to start the final lap with a comfortable 4-second advantage over James Mackay. Ratu, comfortable advantage over Cameron Dance as well. He's got 1.5 seconds over the battle for 4th place. Davison again shows those at turn 1, goes very deep and makes contact with Dance and spins him around, gives him a push on the front end to get him back on the right way again. Davison's going to lose out to Ross Rizzo, and now Rizzo is right on the back of Dance and might yet take 4th place on the final lap of the race. We'll stay live because we don't have much time left in this race, but you saw what happened there. Late on the brakes, just got into the right rear of Cameron Dance, didn't quite have enough of an overlap to warrant the corner there. Further back, Szlowski runs into yet another issue in this race. He's had an adventurous race he has had in that Trick Sim Sports car. Rizzo, he needs to make this spot up to minimize the damage he can, because his championship rival's leading this race. He's going to win this race. Dance sliding through the final part of the roller coaster, and Rizzo fires up the inside at turn 11, slides in front of him. That was almost a slide job there on Cameron Dance. Gets the spot away, takes 4th place. Now Dance, in his slipstream, should be close enough to remove 2 into turn 14A and 14B. Will Rizzo go defensive? Which line does he want to take, the inside or the outside? He's close enough. He's alongside him, side by side through 14A. for the final time. Dancing through and contact for Rizzo. Spins Cameron Dance around. Up front though, Alexander Bird across the start finish line. He's got to win here at round 9 of the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. Leads home James Mackay, home in second ahead of Ratu in third. Davison, he takes 4th place ahead of Silvassi, and Rizzo have come home in 6th place. Cameron Dance in 5th. Further back, that battle for 10th place. Healy takes it. Reese Keane. Philip Worley nose to tail across the line, but Keane's going to hold him off.
Yeah, just indeed. Big action on that final lap, and as just about everyone has come across the finish line. We'll take some replays and look at what on earth went on. So this is starting the final lap, and this is where Davison and Dance came together. Davison helps Dance around and then helps him pointing straight, and Rizzo comes through on that move, and see that little tap sends Dance into a slide, and Davison points him back facing the right way. Rizzo comes through and grabs one spot.
Zlowski, we saw the end of his issue where he was facing 90 degrees to the track. Through the final corner, I suspect he's just lost the rear there and overcorrected in the other direction. Did a good job to keep it off the wall on the inside. Lost probably about 1 spot on the lap. Look at the onboard here from Ross Rizzo. Look at the slide that Cameron Dance got at the top of the roller coaster, going back to the left. Wait for it in a second. To the right, and then back to the left. He showed the nose, pressured him, and sliding through the corner, Tokyo Drift stuff. Then he saw an opportunity to get down the inside, slid up in front of Cameron Dance, took his line away, and then they went side by side for the next corner.
That was a bold move initially there from Rizzo, not normally an overtaking spot, but he had a good run, found a car's bit to the inside. Now here, Dance comes back in the slipstream. Rizzo stays to the right-hand side mostly, which is going to become the inside for the right-hander. We'll watch on board from Dance here, who maybe has a little bit of a slide on the way in. The two bang doors in the middle, both spin around. That was Danny Davison grab 4th place. Martin Silvassi also sneaks through on these two guys from the helicopter shot.
I think that one's probably on Cameron Dance, to be honest. I think he bounced over that inside curb and Rizzo left him enough room, and I think that contact with Rizzo from Cameron Dance is what unsettled his car and eventually resulted in both of them going around. So that's unfortunate for Rizzo. It seemed like he was going to recover up to 4th place, but in the end finishes the final lap exactly where he started at 6th. What we'll do is we'll go to a break though. We'll catch our breaths after 1.5 hours of exhilarating racing here at VIR. When we come back, we'll go through the results. Stay tuned. We'll be back just after this.
I started working on Epiroc machines in 2009. I've been able to career progress through the company to become the product manager for Australia. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia, looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. A word from our sponsor there for this series, helping to make this one happen. Here is how they finish at the end of an hour and a half of racing. Alexander Bird took the win in probably the only clean car to finish this race. James Mackay, 2 penalties, still finished in 2nd place ahead of Bradley Ratu. He faced backwards a number of times today and came home in 3rd to round out that podium. Danny Davison, he was in the wars on that final lap with Cameron Dance and Ross Rizzo around him. He eventually claimed 4th. Silvassi home in 5th place ahead of Ross Rizzo, who's lost ground of the championship today in 6th. Cameron Dance and Simon Mizoma rounding out the top 8, and rounding out the top 10 was Michael Healy and Reese Keane. don't believe Dave has come back yet from the break, so I'll keep going through the results. Philip Worley and Adam Briggs, 11th and 12th. Josh Perween, Ryan Jarrett, who was in the wars as well today, in 14th. And John Nikoloff. Jackson Walls, who led the race for some stage, led the race for quite some time with that alternate strategy. Doesn't pay off in the end. Well, he gained 2 spots, so paid off for Jackson Walls in 16th. Sazowski, Wasson, Alex Court, and Neil Pearson running out the top 20. Then the lap down cars, Trent Thomas, Sean Reed, and our retirements, Bo Albert, Zachary Hamlin, Jackson Harlow, and Brett Kinanzi. That was a very exciting race, David, and a lot of action, a lot of incidents, a race of attrition in the end. What are your thoughts on that one before we go to some interviews?
I mean, it really delivered on this endurance format, this 90-minute race. A lot of strategy, like we often see in Sprint Series Australia, but it just 2 safety cars and James Mackay with 2nd place after serving 2 penalties. And what a jumbled up podium we got as well. I mean, often we might be used to John Peasnick up there mixed amongst some Trick Sim Sports cars. Bird with the win, and then the not the typical order of finishing we would have expected in this series. A lot of big names with some troubles, and some other emerging talents, I think, picking up the pieces.
Yeah, no doubt. What we'll do is we'll grab in our race winner, Alexander Bird, the only driver to really have a trouble-free race. The most action you saw today, Bird, it's Alex. It seemed to be that start. Congratulations on the win. Talk us through that start you had.
Yeah, so I've been very good at anticipating the starts all year. I don't know, but that one was pure fluke. And then I got some luck to get out a little hole. And I was sort of looking at Zach on the left. I'm like, all right, all I need to do here is just nose up the inside of heels, box out Zach, and then I'm in 3rd. And then I just missed the braking point completely. And thankfully, Trent saw me coming and just left enough room, because otherwise it was going to end at turn 1. But it ended up okay in the end, I guess.
Well, it got you into the lead, so I thought it was pretty good. Before the race got underway, we were talking about the championship with you and Rizzo starting 7th and 8th, and drama you could find yourselves getting involved in with being back in the pack, but you sort of negated that for us by the time we even got to turn 1. I'm not sure how aware you are of the absolute calamity that was occurring for the entirety of the race behind you. With the restart, the 2nd restart, you were behind Jackson Walls for quite some time. He had to make another pit stop. I'm sure you're aware of that, but was he up to pace and able to just hold you guys off, or were you just trying to sit there and save a bit of fuel behind him?
I had a go at passing him, but I was also conscious that I was going to be difficult to get to the end. So after a couple of goes, I kind of just gave up and started lifting coast. And that was fine while Ross was behind me, but once he got annihilated, it was a little bit scarier, because I didn't know what was going to happen with the guys behind me, whether they're going to try and pass or whatever. I'm a bit annoyed because that guy, when I did go to pass him, was blocking one side, and then when we hit the brakes, he'd move over, which was really sketchy. But one time particularly, he put me in the grass, which I felt was not very polite. But it worked out in my favour in the end. It allowed me to save the fuel. So, yeah, I could get to the end. And then once he pulled off, I sort of tried to check out. Brad came with me, but then made a mistake. So at that point, it was just conserve.
Well, he certainly had the pace today over the entire field. In terms of the championship, 2 rounds remain. Before today, you had a 189-point lead over Ross Rizzo. He ran into a number of issues, finished back in 6th. You've won 5 out of the 9 rounds so far. How confident are you of maintaining the lead in the championship?
Yeah, look, everything going to plan, I think it should be fine, but the last round isn't droppable. And so, you never know. I might just get punted and then that'll be it. 400 points gone. So you just never know with this series. You've got to keep the pressure on all the way to the last race. I am just trying to make sure that I have lots of good results so I can drop Kota, because that was a bad that was a bad result in the scheme of things. And if that stays on my drop list, I should be really good.
Well, we'll be watching with interest to see how it unfolds. Before we let you go, have you got any shout-outs and thanks you want to give to sponsors or anyone in particular?
Yeah, I think first of all, just Trent and Heels should have absolutely won this race. So, shout out to them for just being awesome this week and great work on the car. Rest of the team, Trick Sim Sports, Trick Custom Fabrications, and Night Rod Designs.
All right, well, thank you very much, Alex. Congratulations on the win. What we'll do now is we'll grab for David to interview our third place getter today, Bradley Ratu. David, the floor is yours.
Well, Bradley, this race really turned out some unexpected results. You end up on the podium, and for a long while in this race, it probably didn't look like that.
No, it really didn't. Had some pretty bad luck in the opening few laps, but pulled through and came out with a really good result, actually.
Now, we were always expecting 2 pit stops in this race, but in the end, for most of our runners, they took the service behind the safety car. What was going to be your strategy if there wasn't a final safety car? And did you ever have any thoughts of not pitting with the safety car?
I was always going to pit under safety car. I had JRT running on my other screen, so I knew how much I actually needed. That second safety car, I knew would be my final pit stop. So I took the chance to grab as much fuel as I could on board, and I ran it to the finish.
And this circuit and the weather, it was very cold track temperatures. We saw a lot of people have issues with that. The cars just become too grippy, too on a knife edge. Why are so many drivers having trouble in cool temperatures?
I come into this race thinking that I was going to have issues, but we didn't. We actually had a really good race setup. But I think a lot of people would have set up their car in probably around a 30-degree track temp. That's what we were testing in using the race weather for testing, and we never saw anything as low as what we've seen today. So it was very different to drive in.
Obviously, that's a good result of third for yourself and for your team. What's it going to take to get another podium later in this season?
Another setup just like that one. The today's setup was really, really good, actually. I pushed it as hard as I could from the rear of the field twice, and it gave up just about when I ran it off the road in the first sector of the lap. But another setup just like today and a whole lot more luck in the future would be great.
Well, hopefully we'll see you again with 2 rounds remaining. Anyone you'd like to thank?
I'd like to thank the boys at EXG Motorsports, Danny Davison, Josh Perwin, Cameron Stubber, all the boys that helped out with the setups for this race, and obviously our sponsors, NatRad, Quantum Energy, Gamers Apparel, and everyone else who supports us.
Well, there we are. Thank you so much for making the time to speak with us after a very long, very action-packed, and very, very exciting race.
That was... Thank you very much, Bradley. And that was an interesting race. There was a lot of fantastic action up and down the field, some great racing, but also some messy incidents as well. But that will pretty much do us for tonight, and it's been an absolute pleasure calling it. Coming up for SimSpeed TV, SSA is back in 2 weeks' time at Phillip Island. But tomorrow night on the SimSpeed YouTube channel, it's the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, week number 7 of that series in the TCR cars. And then on Friday, back on the iRacing Esports Network, the Proud Motor Isuzu U AOSC is back in action, and what will, as always, be a fantastic race. So make sure you subscribe, give us a like on the video, and come check us out whenever you have time, and stay tuned for more action across a variety of series and broadcasters on the iRacing Esports Network. But that's going to do us. From myself, Ryan Jones, from David Haynes alongside me, and from my director, Jay Kennedy. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night. We'll catch you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?